asked Wooster. "He found a compass for us," said Charlotte. "We even had to face a group of frozen but living pirates," cried Robert. Just as Charlotte A. Cavatica was about to go back to rescue Bouncer, Long John Silver's pirate hat and sword started to resurface. "Look out, Miss Charlotte!" screamed Robert, but it was actually Bouncer wearing Long John Silver's pirate hat and holding his sword. "He survived and he made it," said Charlotte happily. "Bouncer, you're alive!" cried Robert joyfully. Bouncer stepped forward and with Charlotte's help, he managed to get back on board the giant green apple. Now that they had a compass, Robert shook the frost off of the seagulls and the group on board the giant green apple all headed out of the Arctic Circle. Then, they were back on their way to Zootopia. By nightfall, that evening, they had reached warmer seas and the cold, bleak biting weather was far behind at last. Robert sat upon the edge of the wooden fence pathway, which spiraled the giant green apple. He was gazing into his Zootopia travel book from his father and staring at his, cartooned, reflection in the ocean water far below him. He was excited to go to the real and actual city of Zootopia, but he was also sad that his mom Amy and his dad Mike weren't there to share this moment with him. Then, he heard violin music from above. It seemed very familiar. His curiosity brought him to the top of the giant green apple, where he found Basil playing his violin. It made Robert think of the fun times he and his mother shared together, when they watched movies and had fun together. "When my mother was around, I used to listen to that music with her before I went to sleep. That was a long time ago," Robert said sadly. Basil took notice of what Robert was saying and stopped playing his music as Robert started sobbing and bursting into tears. Basil comforted Robert, who eventually stopped crying and looked at Basil. As Robert did, Basil spoke softly to him. "I'm sure your parents would be very proud of you, Robert. I know we all are." Robert smiled at Basil and then at the rest of the crew on board the giant green apple who were his friends and asked, "You could always be my new family, can't you?" "Robert, we can be your new family for the rest of your days," said Bouncer happily. Robert smiled an even bigger smile than before and hugged Bouncer close to his heart. All of his new friends gathered around and promised Robert to be his new family and that Robert would never be sad or lonely ever again as long as they were with him. Suddenly, at that moment, the clouds parted, and a magical city appeared, with the sound of gazelles singing the Zootopia song, "Try Everything." "Zootopia!" they exclaimed with joy. "We made it!" cried Mrs. Brisby, but before they could make their descent, a fierce, violent wind began to blow. Soon the golden compass broke loose and fell down into Zootopia's ocean. The terrible lightning storm changed the lightning bolts into a blood-red color, as a gigantic wildcat appeared as big as the Titanic. From within the dark storm clouds, came roaring and hissing angrily. "It's the mountain lion that killed my mom and dad!" screamed Robert in horror. "Quickly, Robert, do something! Don't let it hurt us!" screamed the Skog. The mountain lion kept on roaring and hissing angrily as it got closer. Everyone on board the giant green apple was terrified with fear. Everyone, climb up into the rigging where it is safe. Hurry! Robert called to his new friends and climb quickly up into the rigging they did. Except for Robert, who raced to face the mountain lion, face to face. "Robert, are you not coming with us?" screamed Charlotte to Robert. "No." Robert called back to his new family. "It got my mom and dad, it won't kill my friends," he yelled bravely. Then he faced the mountain lion, right in the eye, still on board the giant green apple. "Come out and show your face, you hideous beast!" Robert yelled angrily at the mountain lion, and the mountain lion changed into the same mountain lion from Robert's nightmare as red lightning flashed from its eyes. Robert remembered his nightmare earlier and gasped in terror. The mountain lion drew closer, faster and faster. "Remember what your parents said, Robert," called the Skog to Robert. "Try looking at it another way." Robert quickly looked at the evil mountain lion another way, then faced him completely enraged and violently angry. "You're not even a real mountain lion. You're just a bunch of worthless clouds and dust," he yelled angrily. The mountain lion was stunned and shocked to hear this and paused, hissing angrily, as the red lightning from his red eyes faded away. It was clear Robert was no longer afraid of the mountain lion anymore. "I'm not afraid of you. I'll never be afraid of you," Robert screamed at the mountain lion angrily. The mountain lion was now violently enraged and angry at Robert and struck the fence pathway with the aid of the red lightning from his eyes and roared angrily as it disappeared into nothing. Afterwards, the fence pathway came undone and cut the strings with his new family and the seagulls still attached, while Robert and the giant green apple fell down to the great city of Zootopia. "Robert!" screamed his friends from above. "Help!" screamed Robert as he fell into the room inside of the giant green apple. Soon the giant green apple crashed on top of the tallest building in Zootopia, which poked right through the giant green apple, like a marshmallow on a toothpick. The unconscious Robert gave out a cough and coughed out the glowworm he had swallowed. As he returned into his normal human self, Robert climbed onto the surface of the giant green apple. He soon looked down upon the magnificent city of Zootopia. It looked just as Robert had always dreamed it would be, but the tallest building was nowhere within his sight. "This isn't right," Robert said, a bit confused and puzzled. "Where's the tallest building of Zootopia supposed to be?" Robert asked himself, as he scanned the Zootopia horizon in order to find it. However, he was indeed on top of the tallest building of the world of Zootopia, and the giant green apple was too. Soon, the juice of the giant green apple leaked and dropped down towards the Zootopia city streets. One huge drop of green apple juice drenched Mr. Big, Frou Frou and all their polar bears from head to toe in green apple juice. Another huge drop went on top of Nick and Judy during their lunch break at a nearby cafe and covered themselves and their police uniforms from head to toe in green apple juice. "What the heck was that?" cried Nick Wilde as he and Judy spotted the giant green apple from above. Soon the whole city took notice too. Officer Hops. Officer Wild. There's a creature up there, cried Mrs. Otterton to Nick and Judy, who had spotted Robert with her telescope and had taken notice of him. What? A creature is up there, Judy gasped. You stay here and take photos of this thing, while I call Bogo, Nick Wilde said, taking charge, as he raced to a nearby police phone booth to quickly call Chief Bogo. Bogo, we got us a huge unidentified object here, said Nick Wilde in a mad panic. What does it look like, Wilde? Asked Chief Bogo through the phone. A giant green, it looks like a giant fruit or something, said Nick Wilde. Well, what is it, Wilde? Asked Chief Bogo, yelling through the phone. I don't know what it is, just send us the biggest construction crane in Zootopia. It's on top of the tallest building and we have to get it down before it crushes the building of our city, screamed Nick, fearing the worst. Soon Chief Bogo took notice of the giant green apple too and called in for the biggest construction crane of Zootopia to come right away. Eventually, the beaver construction workers lowered the crane down towards Robert as the crane came closer to the giant green apple. Please, beavers, how do I get to the tallest building of Zootopia? Robert asked them. You're on top of it, sir, they said to Robert. I made it, Robert cried happily with glee. With Robert's help, the beavers attached the crane to the stem of the giant green apple and lowered it downward to the city streets of Zootopia. With the help of the Zootopia Fire Department, Robert was lowered to the city streets of Zootopia as well, right off of the giant green apple. Thousands of animal reporters came up to him. Where you from? Why are you here? What are you exactly? They asked him, but Robert was very nervous at first. Nick Wilde quickly raced forward to Robert's defense and removed the animal reporters from crowding him. Hold your fire, fellas, he's new here, clear up now. Nick went over to Robert. Robert was happy about being in the real and actual city of Zootopia, but he was very nervous to even talk at first. It's okay, big guy, nobody's going to hurt you. Now, can you please tell us how you and this giant green thing got here? Nick Wilde said to Robert. I used a flock of 100 seagulls to get here, Robert said. Suddenly, Robert felt two hands upon his shoulders. They were human hands much like his own, only with hideous fingernails. It was Miss Settlers Bentle and Miss Gulch Forcible. They were so angry and enraged at Robert, they had driven their smashed car all the way across the sea to take Robert and the giant green apple back to that hideous house on the hill.